From Omaha, Nebraska to New York City. From planet Earth to extraterrestrial life in space. A podcast with no equal, engaged in unconventional warfare through your speakers and headphones. This is a show about embracing the suck, conquering your demons, and finding God in the face of adversity. Chris Tonto Peranto.
Switch is on. Motherfucker, I'm gonna shoot you in the face.
Ian Scotto.
You know, Ian and I have been dating for a long time.
You are now tuned into the Battle Line Podcast.
The Switch is on Battle Line Podcast, and I am embarrassed to say, I'll use an SAT word here. I am chagrined that we are 171 episodes deep, and we're finally having on Frank Grippe, Sergeant Major Grippe, and I will 100% blame myself because this is a man that Chris has wanted to have on probably since episode 1. That you've been bugging me to get on, and I've wanted to have on, obviously, so I shouldn't say bugging me, because it's just every month, it just, there's so many people we want to get on, and I'm glad we're finally doing it.
Yeah, he's the man. For those that are Ranger Battalion, they know who Command Sergeant Major Frank Grippe is. He was my first sergeant when I was first in, and that's how I got to know him. But yeah, he's a legend, man. He's like Max Mullet, you know. He's a Ranger Hall of Famer, Ranger legend. Been in Operation Urgent Fury, been in Just Cause, fought in GWAT, was dropping mortars at Anaconda when that was going on with 10 Mountain Division. And he was a Command Sergeant Major out there dropping mortars with the mortar team. That says you how much of a badass this guy is. So yeah, it's good to finally get him on. And he's a character. He's just a tremendous Ranger, just one of the best.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I was going to mention in just a random, news of what's going on in the world. It'll be Monday by the time people hear this, but I'm not the biggest football guy. I'm more of a hockey guy, but I'm not even going to talk about how terrible the Islanders are doing. But your Cowboys at this point, as of Friday, as we're taping, are in the mix. New York Giants in the mix, and Buffalo Bills. It's an exciting time to see.
And Philadelphia,
Philadelphia.
The Eagles. I said the NFC East. That's what I grew up with when I was growing up. They were the best conference. That was growing up with Roger Staubach days, and then you had Ron Jaworski days. I mean, them going way back, guys. And even you had the Redskins with John Riggins and Joe Theismann. And I grew up on football. I don't pay attention to as much anymore because they just get too much into politics and just instead of just playing, which to me is motivating, just watching football, remembering watching football with my father. But to me, that seems like some normalcy because now the NFC East is the best conference, in my opinion, again, in NFL football. And that's kind of cool because that's how it was when I was growing up. So, I don't really watch. I watch the scores, but the Cowboys always break my heart. They always do. Those that watch the Cowboys now, if they pay attention to NFL football, they're probably the most talented team out there. Maybe the Eagles are close second, but they always fall short for some reason, and I don't know why every year. So I honestly, I was like, I'm not going to watch them. I'll just pay attention to the scores on, I'll get on my phone. And when I do that, so now it's like a good luck thing. They usually win. If I watch the game, they lose. So I don't watch the game, but I do pay attention to it and on my phone and watch the scores, the timeline. And yeah, it's kind of cool. It's kind of, and again, it's a good time of year because it reminds me of when I was growing up and watching football with Howard Cosell, and Frank Gifford as the commentators and John Madden and watching it with my father and my brother, and because I was big into football through college. So yeah, it's cool though. It's a cool thing to see.
Do you remember Taman Turner by any chance? Worked with me at Sirius XM. He worked on David Webb's show. He did stuff with us and Will.
I didn't know him very well, but I met him. Yeah.
Super nice guy, man. But he truly is like the biggest Cowboys fan. Was born in Texas and then grew up in Connecticut, went to college on Long Island. He's back in Texas now. But man, he flew to Tampa to see the Cowboys.
Oh, did you really?
And he looks like he had the time of his life, man. Because and it's one of those things where you think about it, it's such a gamble to go to Tampa, because I feel like, you know, you're gonna say, oh, I had a good time regardless. But I feel like if you make the effort, get a hotel, fly there, like spend probably an absurd amount of money to see that game, and you see them lose, you're probably like, I could have spent that so much better. But I think to fly out there and get to see the Cowboys win in Tampa
and beat Tom Brady, man, that was
yeah. He looks like, and he had great seats. I just, you know, he looks like he had the time of his life. So it is cool to see, because I know he's the furthest thing from like a bandwagon jumper. He is Cowboys through and through. So it was cool to see.
Since I was a little first grade, I used to have you may not know this, but there's other Cowboys fans. You'll know who Bob Lilly is, one of the greatest defensive linemen ever for the Cowboys. And I still got his old football card and an old 20-door set rookie card. I mean, that's when I used to collect football cards. And yeah, so it's cool to see that the Cowboys are winning again. And like I always said, the world, and I continue to say, it's the world we backed right again when the Yankees win the World Series, when the Cowboys win the Super Bowl, when I would say the Islanders or the Oilers win the hockey championship. That's when the world will be right.
Not happening for a while though.
Yeah,
man.
and the Boston Celtics win the NBA championship again, and then the world, and there'll be Larry Birds and Magic Johnsons back in the league, because you don't see guys. Man, those are class acts back in the day, man. Just class acts.
Dude, last night I got my workout in, and I decided I'm going to head over to Buffalo Wild Wings, watch the rest of this Islander game. It was like a late workout. I saw they were in overtime. So I was like, all right, let me catch this overtime. Literally, I sit down, you know, and I rarely drink, as you know, but I was in the mood. I was about to order a beer, get a wings. Overtime starts, and they lose like within a minute. I'm just like, not again, man. Not like, this team is just breaking my heart. But in news that we would cover here, man, I wanted to get into this, not just for the shock value of it or any of that, but because of your experience with firearms. Obviously, you being an instructor, we covered when Alec Baldwin had that shooting on set. And now there's an update on that. Alec Baldwin to be charged with involuntary manslaughter and Rust film shooting, along with the film's cinematographer, Helena So Helena Hutchins was the woman who was killed, but the armorer, Hannah Gutierrez Reed, will also be charged with 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter for the 2021 fatal shooting on the New Mexico set of the film Rust. So, yeah, man, what I was wondering, actually, for one, I mean, I think you obviously have to charge them with manslaughter. But my question is, I mean, who's really more at fault when you think about it, Alec Baldwin or is the armorer? I think it's interesting in this case because of the fact that I believe Alec Baldwin was like an executive producer on the film, so he was more than just an actor. But I would think in a hypothetical situation where, let's just say it was an actor who didn't have an executive role in the film, and the armorer tells them, hey, aim the gun at this person and shoot. You have to assume that this actor knows absolutely nothing about firearms. And it obviously, I mean, besides conspiracy theories out there, if we're going based on the official story, he did not intend to shoot and kill this person. It was a total accident. I would just think, to have an armorer on set saying that this is acceptable, that you could do that, you know, you assume that the person instructing you is an expert on firearms. I mean, if you take a class with Chris Paranto or any firearms instructor, there's no scenario where they would ever tell you that's okay.
That's okay to point. Yeah. You know, without knowing everything, and I don't think because our media is such sensationalized, and they do, and they don't really put the whole story on there. Those are only on the ground will know the full truth. So without knowing everything and only knowing what the media has told us, various outlets, you do have to put some onus of responsibility on the people that were in the movie, because, you know, I learned this from my 1st Battalion commander, his name Colonel McChrystal, who's General McChrystal now, who said the success or failure of any mission falls on the highest chain of command. So you do have that responsibility if you are in charge. But then also as well, the armor or the military advisor, that's their job, is to make sure that weapons are cleared, make sure that the environment is safe. That's their responsibility. So yeah, Yeah, we're playing armchair quarterback here,
Yeah.
and even though I say I hate doing that, hey, we're on the show, I'm doing it. Okay, I don't like to do it, but that's what we have the show for. We're putting our opinions out there.
No, and also, I mean, I bring it up too because the people on the news commenting on it half the time know absolutely nothing about firearms. I'm not an expert, and I know more than most of these people. I know you always say the thing about there's no subject matter experts, but you are someone with the 10,000 hours of training on
With
firearms.
knowledge, sure, with and that says to Hollywood to start hiring. There, believe me, guys, there are tons of social media 2A military influencers that would love to be part of Hollywood. Go to SHOT Show, you'll find thousands of them right now. You go find, but they're there. Use them. Granted or not, whether I agree with what they want to do with their lives and their careers as far as going into Hollywood, they're there and they want to be there, and they know how to use firearms. Go get those people to be your military advisors, because as they know what they're doing. They know about safety. They know about firearms. They know what a cleared weapon is. They know that you need to know the status of a weapon 3 different times before you hand it to somebody. They want to be part of that for some reason. I don't know why, but they want to be part of that world. Go find them. And I think that's the other thing where the armor, I don't know if did he have military? I don't think
it was a woman. It was a woman.
Yeah,
and I don't know
military or law enforcement experience.
I don't think there was. I don't.
Yeah, I don't think so. So are you kidding me? You're having somebody that is ensuring the safety of a set with firearms, with an inherently dangerous. This is an inanimate object, guys. Don't think this gun has a brain. I know you 2A gun grabbers think this. It doesn't. It's a piece of metal.
People aren't listening.
I know. If they do, well, I hope you catch that part. But the person that is responsible for that firearm is going to be the one that should be at fault, at least initially. Now, there are other people that are, of course, should be at fault as well because of their set, because it's their show. They need to make sure as well because they are in charge. But that person that is the armor, yeah, that's your job, that you make sure it's safe. And go back to Hollywood again, start hiring veterans or former law enforcement or even current law enforcement, because some of these jobs are just contract jobs anyway.
Wouldn't you say, to be fair, though, also there are people, I mean, many of whom you've worked with that no military experience, but they are experts on firearms.
I would say they're I wouldn't say experts, but they know firearms, they know safety. So, now just because you have an NRA certification doesn't make you
but I mean, there's plenty of people you've instructed courses with.
Sure.
There's even guys, right, who are part of Battle Line Tactical. There's actually a few instructors, right? No military experience.
And that's where, guys, if you go down their resume, they have to have a lot of hours with firearms. Not just having an NRA certification, it qualifies. And that's why I guess where I'm saying on the easy way to do it. The easy way is to find law enforcement and military, because you don't really need to check their back. If depending on what they were, law enforcement, of course, they're handling firearms daily, especially if they're instructors and they instruct at the academy, like Daniel Lombard out of Devad Defense. Yeah, he is an expert at firearms. That is some guy you want on a set. He's been.
Or I'm thinking of his name is escaping me right now, but the youngest instructor for Battle Line Tactical.
How about Billings, Michael or Jesse Fenley?
No, Jesse Fenley. I was going to say Jesse has no military experience, right? But I would consider Jesse an expert. And
what you would need to do then is just provide references. So Jesse has tons of references from courses that he's gone through with people, not just me, but other people out there that he's done courses with, where you can verify. You have to have that verification, not just one guy. He's good to go. Now, has he been through these courses? Where have they been at? Where are they located at? Who taught them? Can we verify that? Yeah, Jesse would be an excellent one. You're right on that part of the argument of not having any military. He's excellent. He's very safe. Again, though, just making it easy, you got tons of veterans that need work right now too. You got law enforcement guys that are retired that don't want to be part of law enforcement anymore because maybe of the state of law enforcement, where they don't feel like they're getting the support of their states. Not all of them. There's some great departments out there that do, but some of those older guys are getting out. What perfect job would this be for them? Right there. And you also have a badged officer there, because they don't lose their badge when they retire. So you not only have an armor there, somebody that's being a safety check, an RSO, a range safety officer, I guess you could call them, but you're also having somebody that's part of law enforcement that if there is any criminal activity going on, you've got extra security right there. So I think it's you got killing 3 birds with one stone. So regardless, whoever that armor is, Hollywood, they need to have that experience. And like on our movie, we had Harry Humphreys. Harry Humphreys is a plank owner. What that means, he's one of the original members of SEAL Team 6. Yeah, he worked with Marchenko. He's got tons of experience. And the guys that he brought on, plus us, all of us were former military. And some of them we're still currently working GRS contracts. So our movie, that I think that set the standard of safety right there. And they were extremely safe. And but you still got the effects of the movie, and it still looked great with everything going on around it. So yeah, brother, I we are in agreement. I guess I'm just going down the easy road, and I'm doing a shout out for veterans and law enforcement that need work. Hollywood, go find them. They need work. Give them a job. They know what they're doing, and believe me, they will be safe. You won't have an accident. I knock on wood, Murphy always rears his ugly head when you don't want Murphy to rear his ugly head.
Yeah, well, I mean, and also when we say accident, like accidents do happen, but this is a whole nother league when you point a gun at someone.
That's negligence. Yeah, that's negligence. Yeah. That's not an accidental discharge. That's a negligent discharge. And 99.9% of discharges that where you shoot a gun and the bullet comes out, and you don't want it to come out, that's negligent. So I'll be out. We don't.
And I mean, and that is like anymore. That is the most basic fundamental of firearm safety. You don't point a gun at someone, and you certainly don't shoot a gun. I mean, so this is as basic as I have no business being a armorer on a film, right? But if I was, I would know that you would know. That, of course. Anyone would know you don't do that. Anyone who's ever handled a gun would know you don't do it. So I mean, I think this will change things for the better, because these people getting charged with manslaughter, I don't think they'll allow this to ever happen again. It is what it is. I think in terms of covering the story, the one thing that I thought was really fucked up, and it's from the New York Post, I saw it, and they do a lot of stuff that I think is just sensational and ridiculous, was that they took pictures of Baldwin's wife with their son in the city, and they're like, Hilaria Baldwin looks distraught after husband charged with manslaughter. And so, what does she have to do with this? And also, what does his kid have to do with this? His kid have to do anything?
Yeah, that's horse shit. That's horse shit, dude. There's no reason for any of that, man. To stop. Right-wing media, left-wing media, you both are sensational. You both sensationalize every damn thing out there. Knock that shit off, man.
Yeah, I think it's more just like paparazzi, TMZ type culture. And there, people will say like, oh, they're celebrities, they signed up for this. This is not in that category at all.
And his kid sure as hell didn't sign up for it. So knock that shit off. Yeah. I'm very, as good as I'm very protective of my children, and I'm not Alec Baldwin by any means with that. And people don't get to see my kids. And if people take pictures of them, you're getting punched in the fucking face. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So very protective. And kids should be protective, because kids, no matter who their fathers or mothers are, kids should be kids. Let them be kids. And with that kind of crap out there, it doesn't allow them to be children at all.
And it's also, I mean, what is the objective of taking pictures of his wife after this? Do you want her to kill herself? Do you want obviously she's going to feel terrible about this. So stuff like that is just messed up, man. Another story that I wanted to hit, you guys have heard me talk about, this hits home for me because it's my district, the studio here in Connecticut, but I'm a Long Island guy through and through. And George Santos, I've mentioned him, in passing the past couple of shows, just because it's come up, and he's lied about everything, lied about where he went to school, lied about his job, lied about a million things, but it doesn't really pertain to us. It's politics, and we don't really get into politics. But when it gets into the veteran community, that's when it pertains to what we do. So this came out in local news in Patch, which is a local paper. And this is the headline. This is from Jacqueline Sweet of the staff there. Disabled veteran says George Santos took $3,000 from Dying Dogs GoFundMe. 2 New Jersey veterans say George Santos promised to raise funds for a life-saving surgery for a service dog, then disappeared. And it says here, in May 2016, Richard Osthoff was living in a tent in an abandoned chicken coop on the side of the road of Route 9 in Howell, New Jersey, with his beloved service dog, Sapphire. A veterans charity gave the pit mix to Osthoff, a disabled veteran who was honorably discharged from the U.S. Navy in 2002, he told Patch. When Sapphire developed a life-threatening stomach tumor, Osthoff, now 47, learned the surgery would cost $3,000. A veterinary technician took Osthoff aside and told him, I know a guy who runs a pet charity who can help you, Osthoff recounted. His name was Anthony DeVolder, and his pet charity was called Friends of Pet United, the vet tech told him. Anthony DeVolder is one of the names that Long Island Representative George Santos used for years before entering politics in 2020. Santos faces multiple criminal investigations after reports surfaced that he fabricated much of his resume during his congressional campaign. Many Democratic and Republican lawmakers on Long Island are calling for him to resign. Osthoff and another New Jersey veteran, retired Police Sergeant Michael Bohl, who tried to intervene to help Osthoff in 2016, told Patch that Santos closed the GoFundMe he set up for Sapphire after it raised $3,000 on social media, and then he disappeared. And Osthoff has, the receipts to verify this, to be fair, and also to cover our ass. It's all alleged. George Santos tweeted out, the reports that I would let a dog die is shocking and insane. My work in animal advocacy was the labor of love and hard work. Over the past 24 hours, I received pictures of dogs I helped reduce throughout the years. He meant to write rescue, so he didn't get that statement right.
Whoops.
And along with supportive messages, these distractions won't stop me. So
was that a Freudian slip? Reduce?
I know, right?
Jesus. Okay.
I reached out to Osthoff to get him on maybe to talk about this because, like I said, the lying about everything, you've said it before in the show where you said it's the modus operandi, right, of politicians. Is that the way you put it?
It's the MO, man. That's what they do.
But in terms of when you screw a veteran out of $3,000, allegedly, then that's our wheelhouse. It's something we want to cover. And look, it's hard to take him seriously when he says, I didn't do this, because he lied about literally everything. And as someone in his district, I don't think people really knew much about him. They just wanted to vote a Republican in office. And I think that these were down the ballot votes for Lee Zeldin, who is a great congressman, who is a veteran. And I think people really liked him, and they just went down ticket Republican. And Santos lost 2 years ago because I think there wasn't as strong a Republican Party locally. And I think he has Zeldin to thank for getting this seat. But yeah, man, this is, of all the allegations that have come out, this is a big one, man. Stealing $3,000 from a veteran charity for his dog, a guy who was basically homeless at the time. It's pretty low. It's very low.
Was Santos, and correct me, I don't know for sure. So was Santos a veteran? Did you read that?
No,
Santos,
he's not. Santos, if he claimed,
did he lie about that? Okay.
No. But he lied about work. He lied about going to NYU. He lied about working for, I believe, like Morgan Stanley or other banking companies. He lied about his own mother dying in 9/11. The guy's lied about everything.
That's what. Yeah, that's what we've talked about. That's, I knew we were talking about. Like, where have I heard that before?
Lied about being Jewish.
Yes. It's sad that the people we have to pick to be in charge or have no ethics. Politicians don't. And we've seen it. We when you're talking to Brad last week, at the highest levels, there's no ethics. There isn't. There's it's few and far between. To say there are some that do try, but I think that even just the parties themselves cause it to be unethical. The parties are unethical.
But you know what's crazy though, man? Like when you bring a firearms instructor on, for example, right, which we just spoke about, you do your due diligence, you make sure that this person has the qualifications, that they are who they say they are. I do not understand how all of this has come out after the fact that we voted for this guy, because if you lie about your place of employment, how does the Republican Party? That's just a phone call. Call the place of employment. Did this person work there? Call the college. Did this person go there? How did it take this long for all this crap to come out? I don't understand.
Maybe there needs to be HR departments, hiring departments within the political parties, because that's what corporations do to check your backgrounds. You have
when we do an interview, right? Like I'll call you. Hey, is this guy who he says he is? And then during the interview, we'll see if this person is who they say they are. They're going to get called out. I'll be honest, like one point in time, I ended up booking someone who was a phony. I learned that they were later on, but they had a bunch of people who basically stood by them, right? And this was Wayne Simmons. A lot of you guys have heard about that. But by and large, right, I would say I have a good track record. I think most people I work with do, and like that's just an interview, right? That's not running on the ballot to be a congressman. And I don't understand how you don't spend. You could have taken a day to do some phone calls, and you would have seen this person is not who they say they are.
And this just doesn't happen within the political world, which is why there's so many damn problems, and why there's no integrity. why they're untrustworthy, why there's no ethics. People do slip through the cracks. I don't think that's in this case. Hopefully we'll have Gabe on one of these days, Gabe Ruff, and we'll talk about Matt Marshall, who fooled a lot of us as being a force recon Marine, and which he wasn't. Took a bunch of money. There's a whole story about Matt Marshall out there, guys. For you guys that have worked with Matt and you know what I'm talking about, and it's horse shit. And hopefully we get Gabe on, who was a GRS operator with me, was a PJ before, and worked with. But what I'm saying is that, even when you do, like you said, do the due diligence, sometimes you will do it all. And we did it. And he had the back. We thought he did. I mean, he was supposed to be getting checked. He had the resume. He still fooled a lot of us as being a force recon Marine. He wasn't. And it for years, we didn't find out till later. And like I said, karma always catches up. It always does. Murphy always catches up. It's a bitch. The stripper's name is Karma. That's life, but that's how it is. But in this case too, though, and we talk about the importance of being careful giving to GoFundMe's. You don't do it. You and Jack Murphy's big on we don't. This is one of the reasons why.
Well, it depends on who. Like if you're talking about, because since you mentioned him, like when Dave Park, right? When he was injured, I gave that GoFundMe. Okay, I knew exactly who it was going to. But
there was you and Jack are pretty strong, and I'm with you. Pretty strong about.
I think as long as I know. I mean, if you were running a GoFundMe, right? I trust you. I know you. I mean, it probably depends on who the person is.
It's just be careful. That's, I guess, my thing is just you got to be careful because you don't ever know what's going to happen. And with this Jagoff taking $3,000, that's low. I don't know how people can live with them damn selves. Well, how can you live with yourself taking money from a veteran that needs that service dog? And do you not think he might not go down that spiral and take his life? And you're okay with that. You're okay with possibly him taking his life because you needed that $3,000. And I didn't see it in the story. I did read it. I know I obviously didn't remember a lot of it, but I read it. He sent it to me last night. It didn't ever say what he did with the $3,000, did it?
No,
so nobody still knows what happened to it. So
it seems like Santos was a guy who kind of got by month because he wasn't someone who worked for all these bank companies. He worked in a call center. He was late on his rent many times and things like that. So, yeah, I think that's just the type of guy he was. We do have to get, of course, to Command Army Sergeant Major Frank Grippe. Before we do, we were talking about firearms. We were talking about the importance of firearm safety, and the best ammo out there is Fort Scott Munitions. Fort Scott Munitions. If you hold it up, people.
I got mine now. I'm holding it up. I finally got my 10.
Nice.
My own 10. I didn't have one. I'd signed like 500 of these things, but yeah.
Awesome. That's what's up, man. Yeah. So they're a manufacturer, you guys know, of multi-federal patented solid copper and brass CNC spun ammo. It's designed to tumble upon impact in soft tissue, leaving devastating wound channels for faster bleed out and quicker incapacitation. Awesome. This ammo was originally developed to innovate and improve on the standard of military grade ammunition design. It was found that not only did the TUI ammunition outperform competitors in the self-defense industry, but it quickly became apparent that it would be a top contender for hunters alike. With the ammunition being CNC spun, the tolerances are some of the tightest on the market, ensuring that you receive the same results with every pull of the trigger. Go to fortscottmunitions.com, use the promo code BATTLELINE. You're going to get 15% off through us. That's only available to our listeners. And you can also go to the dealer locator and see where they're selling ammo by you. Fort Scott Munitions is a proud supporter of Chris Peranto, Battleline Tactical, and the Battleline Podcast. FSM.com. Promo code BATTLELINE. Also, this show is sponsored by our great friends at Bubs Naturals. They have a lot of new products coming out, and then you got the collagen by you.
Oh yeah, well I was late getting on. You know me, I'm always late getting on with you.
Not today.
So
you were actually
that's because I brought the collagen over with me and stirred it in my coffee. But man, that stuff is awesome, and it really is helping me in my recovery of my quad tendon rupture. Guys, Bubs Naturals, all the stuff they have, and they're great discounts with us. Plus, they always have special discounts that just pop up. Like today, I think I got an email saying there's a 23% off because of January. Their best collagen, best pre-workout MCT oil stuff helps with your gut, and the best gummies out there, the apple cider vinegar gummies. And they've got the Fountain of Youth stuff out there again. My wife swears by it, and yeah, she still looks like she's 30. And she is 30 though. I was just saying. So before she's lit, but it's best stuff out there, guys. Tremendous supplements.
Yeah, and collagen is such an important supplement to get. I mean, a lot of people are probably getting started on their gym, their gym journey with the new year happening, and a lot of people are wondering, like, what supplements do I need? And a lot of supplements, if you really look at it, it's stuff you're already getting in your diet if you're eating clean, if you're eating the right stuff. So a lot of it you really don't need, but something you do need is collagen. You're really not getting that in your diet every day. And it's so important for hair, skin, nails, for joint recovery, for muscle recovery. It's just a great supplement. It's vital, I would say. So bubsnaturals.com. Use the promo code BATTLELINE. You're gonna get 20% off. Also, you're helping the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation every time that you buy their stuff. So you could feel good that you're giving back to a great cause that helps military veteran families, helps education for the children of fallen veterans and that type of thing. So they do a lot of great work. bubsnaturals.com. Use the promo code BATTLELINE for 20% off. So joining us for the first time on the show, and as I said during the intro, I can't believe it's 171 episodes in, because you were someone that Chris has wanted on from the very beginning. I'm just glad.
Yeah, what took you so long?
It's true.
You blame him, man. You
could blame me. You could blame me.
Was I practicing for you, or were you rehearsing for me?
We had to make sure the show was just right before. Okay, we're ready for this. The man of this magnitude, this Ranger, unbelievable monster of a man.
It is true. Some of the heroes you've had on here. God bless you all.
No, thank you. Well, these are the episodes this audience really loves. I mean, we've had people that you would say are celebrities, but the truth is, I think this audience loves hearing from guys like yourself with the accolades that you have. Without further ado, Command Army Sergeant Major Frank Grippe, to really give the full resume of who you are, it would take like half an hour. So I'll give what I can of the Cliff Notes version. 34-year-long military career, served in combat throughout pretty much all of GWAT, throughout the entire global war on terror, served in infantry as a paratrooper, also in Ranger units. So many distinguished, accolades, distinguished service medal, Purple Heart, a whole lot of others. And as I said, it's an honor to have you on, Command Army Sergeant Major Frank Grippe.
Well, Ian, it's a pleasure to be on here. And the only reason I'm still walking, talking, and breathing, I got supposedly all these accolades and awards, is because of good people like Chris over the years, and those good soldiers out there through the use of followership that make it happen. And those great officers and senior NCOs who mentored me over the years. And obviously, allowed me to take command of some great troops and get after the bad guys in combat, and obviously in training too.
Yeah.
So, it goes both ways, up and all around. It's all good stuff. Great to be on the show with y'all.
Hey, Sergeant Major, thanks. But do you want? I know I'm going to slip. I'll call you Frank sometimes. I'll call you Sergeant Major. When I first met you, and we'll talk about that. I was a private. You were a first sergeant over there at BCO. First with you took over for First Sergeant Nolan, I believe it was, and then it was Captain LaCamera. Pete came in.
Exactly.
But before that, you were a guy, and honestly, I was
actually, it was First Sergeant Dietrich, not to cut
Dietrich. It was Dietrich. I'm sorry.
He scared you so much you couldn't even remember his name.
I couldn't remember as well. He always was talking to Gazoo. I always remember it was Gazoo. He always was talking to Gazoo. It was like his thing. Well, I remember when I came in the first time to the barracks, and I saw him talking to somebody on his shoulder, and I look at Lidner. We were both came in together, and I'm like, who the hell? And then we asked. We had the Herminator. We had as our squad leader, and then I had Specialist Foster, and I said, "Who's he talking to?" He goes, "Don't worry about it. He's just talking to Gazoo. It's on his shoulder. Just let him be. But he was an awesome first sergeant too. But when you came in, to me, your demeanor, the way you held yourself, that was Ranger-esque. That was what I wanted to be. And then you had your mustard stains. But so I don't know much about. I know you were there. I know you were there. You were there early on. I guess I'd like to know just that coming early on, being a private when you first came in, and how you grew up, because I didn't know you till you were first sergeant. So you already got a lot of years in. And what that was like, and what the Army was like back then, because I do agree, back when it was hard, it was always harder prior. It was. I ain't gonna lie. My trial was harder than the guys going in now. I do believe that. You definitely was harder than when I went in. but what was that like when you first went in and being a private, because I was a private. What was your private? Like?
It's funny you bring that up, Chris, because one of my talking points over the years, it's always harder in the past. And one of the analogies I use, when I was on the airborne track in August of 1981, for my 12 weeks of infantry one station unit training at Harmony Church.
Holy shit.
Oh yeah.
Long time ago.
Back when our barracks were condemned. But when I got down to the airborne track, our black hats, and I got a lot of stories from most of it too with my Vietnam veteran mentors and drill sergeants. I mean, what a great bunch of people. I mean, we still had the Vietnam era.
Wow.
The Vietnam equipment as I came in. But, one of the things, I heard one of the black hats say was, listen, you people were born in the 60s. Your chromosomes are all screwed up because your parents are on acid and drugs. You're not. And then he starts laughing. He goes, when I came in, those Korean War Rakkasans and, they were out here hammering us, because of XYZ and ABC, and we'll never make it. And obviously those high-speed black hats from the 50s were, or should I say, the high-speed black hats in the 50s were smoking those Korean War veterans. Why? Because they had the 5 mustard stains.
Jeez.
War II, and they are the greatest generation before they are the greatest generation. So the point I want to make is, as you maneuver through any walks of life, and especially in the military, you're always going to hear on how hard it was. But I'll leave the audience with this. This global war on terror is going on for 20 years now. And we've had some great Americans stand up, learn how to be warriors, and go nose to nose with these psychopaths, all throughout the Middle East, Central Asia, and other portions of, North Africa and stuff that goes beyond. So, with that said, it's always harder in the past, and we could compare notes and all that, but the present is now. And I just want to congratulate all those young warriors who are still walking, talking, and breathing and getting after it. And Chris, and Ian, it's folks that you mentor, it's folks that I mentored that are out there carrying on the legacy.
Yeah.
I'm just an old paratrooper guy. I grew up in northern New York, up in the Mohawk Valley. I had war stories from the French and Indian War, the Revolution, the War of 1812, Rogers Rangers since I was a kid. Was one of my heroes. I mean, that's where it all happened. It all operated. There was, American militias. There was Tory militias. There was my beloved Mohawk Indians and the Iroquois, and all that civil war that happened in northern New York. And part of that, there was those voyagers from France and their Indian allies who would raid down into the Mohawk Valley. So I grew up in an area where, there was just death and destruction throughout the early history. It sort of turned me on. I had a World War II dad, a World War II mom. My dad's a Sicilian immigrant and came here at 12.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
I'm an American citizen. Yeah, don't let the white skin fool you, man. Hey, I was born late in life. He was 52. My mom was 42. But, he went over to Europe as an American citizen, soldier. Then the first deployed forces, he fought in Europe, Normandy, phase 1, all the way through.
Wow.
My mom, he married a lovely British lass. She's Scotch-Irish. And that's where I get my light skin from, obviously.
And your ability to drink, is that where you get your drinking ability? Is from your mom's side?
On the mom's side, yeah, there's a lot of adventure on my mom's side. There's some quite interesting people on my dad's side. So if you, like I tell people, especially our partner forces and people I'm trying to influence overseas, if people wonder why I could operate in an insurgency so well, it's because I grew up with family. You have, the outer family, the tribe, in other words, and then you'll have a second thought about the village government and state government and beyond. But it's all family, and where we operate for the majority of the time against, the president's enemies and those individuals we want to positively influence. You got to understand that culture. The bottom line is, through influences, my parents would rather have not seen me join the military, especially going airborne infantry rangers and all that. They had lived through it. My mom's house was, bombed. I had uncles wounded in action, this and that. My mom because of her age in her early 20s, she would leave the bomb shelters with the civilian group and assist while the bombings were going on. So funny thing is, and we'll talk about this later, but as I grew older and understood my parents, wonderful people, but think of that, Sicilian, Scotch Irish. You talk about a wild household growing up. And, both of them in one sense or another had post-traumatic from the fight.
Sure.
And, it was amazing as I watched them grow old and I learned more about, the capabilities and what we do in the military and after, experiencing war myself, you could pick up some of them traits. But, obviously, I went through jump school, 509th Airborne when I was stationed in Vicenza, Italy. I made a comment the other day to this one class I mentor along with Major General K.K. Chin through the United States Army Pacific Command and Indo-PACOM Regional Leader Development Program. I talked about how I pray for the people of Vicenza every day from my paratrooper mistresses back in the early. That's another story we could pick up on theater security cooperation and so forth. But again, I went on to be regimentalized. That unit was retired, the 509th, and it was regimentalized with the 325, 325th Infantry Regiment out of Fort Bragg. So when I left Italy, I went to Fort Bragg. And, I was a brand new buck sergeant, worked my way through the 82nd, became a staff sergeant. In 1 year, I went through jump master training, ranger school, SEER school.
Wow.
And then from there, I had the needed training to test the waters of Second Range Battalion. So, unlike a lot of individuals that went through the pipeline like yourself, I went through the Ranger orientation program back then.
So you're an E5 or you were a sergeant or a
I
staff
was a
sergeant?
staff sergeant. I was a junior staff sergeant.
Okay.
I went up to Charlie Company, 1st Platoon, the infamous Mad Slashers. I gotta give my Mad Slashers a call out here.
Charlie Company, criminal company.
That's I don't want to hear about criminals and casual company and this and that. But went from there to squad leader to one of the craziest things that happened to me up there was as you're fitting in and going through the aspect of maturing into that squad leader position and into the platoon. My platoon sergeant at the time received a DUI on September 27th, 1989. So the morning of my birthday, September 28th, 1989, I won't mention the first sergeant's name, but for 15 minutes, I got my ass chewed by this first sergeant, wondering what the hell did I do? And he told me to go upstairs and take charge of 1st Platoon because my platoon sergeant had got a DUI the evening before.
So he chewed your ass out to take charge. Yeah, that's motivation. I guess that's not.
Hoorah! Hey, ass chewings are ass chewings. You know what I mean, brother?
That's not like Coach Jackson. It's not the triangle, are we? We're like, you're son of a bitch. You're taking over. God, you suck. But get up there and be in charge.
Get the hell up there. You're the new guy. I've been there for less than a year, and I got Rangers at NCOs.
Yeah.
They went through the system. They had tenure on me. So that caused a bit of an issue. And, that's probably one of the better learning points in my life on how to influence, how to work through that type of conflict management and take charge and keep the morale up in a platoon, even though, you're getting backstabbed.
Because the term import, when I was there, import was still a bad thing. If you're an import coming, so was it still the same then? You were basically an import and they're like, holy shit.
It was probably a little worse than when you got there because over the years, as we matured and became more specialized and so forth, Army became, I'll just leave it like that. There was things that went on in the past. It didn't go on in my day. You know what I mean?
Of course.
Finally, got the platoon under control as a staff sergeant, non-promotable. And then, here comes just cause. And I'm a platoon sergeant,
you're an E6P platoon sergeant.
Oh, yeah.
Import. in charge. How did you get the guys together, and how did you get those other E6s to listen to you? I mean,
something, it's you have to have the expertise of understanding, how to be the professional, how to have those stern talks, how to look people in the eye, and it's like, I'm going to kill you. I don't have time for this, nor does I have time for this.
True.
You know what I mean? I didn't ask for this. I didn't pay for this. Position. I'm here. So either we have some followership here, and I didn't even know that term back there, but it's like, listen, I need your support. And I'm going to support you, and we're going to make sure this platoon's successful.
Or we can go behind the woodshed and I remember that. Or we can go in the squad room and have it out. I remember those. I mean, it was still kind of went on.
You're right. But right. I'll keep the politics in the threats. For those who know me and grew up with me, everyone knows my background, Chris. Yeah. And Ian's over there staring like, oh my God.
I'm sitting back and observing.
So,
and this is
as
awesome.
A young squad leader, my first combat experience, in my first major deployment, besides going into the Sinai Peninsula for peacekeeping, which was quite the adventure as a squad leader, because back then, to regress a little bit, the best way to make Sergeant E5 back then was to do a tour in the Sinai and show up as a staff sergeant. You get those two together. So many issues that could take place on remote sites and all that. That could get you hammered. You know what I mean?
Get you knocked down. Yep.
So we'll leave it like that. But anyway, so here I am in 2nd Range Battalion, young staff sergeant. And next thing you know, I'm a platoon sergeant, and I go through that conflict resolution period. And next thing you know, the platoon's cohesive, and we get the no notice deployment to take down Rio Hato, Panama after Noriega. So listen, we only got so much time in this interview, but I want to tell you one of the proudest, moments in life, besides exiting that aircraft over Rio Hato at night under fire, was when we finally got to Fort Benning, Georgia, which was going to be our remote marshalling base. Yeah. And after having this deception story and all that, they were doing another training exercise at Fort Bliss, I finally get the platoon, after this 141 ride from Fort Lewis to Fort Benning, the pack shed, right? The infamous pack shed. And literally, we had just done a rehearsal a few days prior. And we jumped into, I think it was Auxiliary Field 6 or 5 in Florida, not knowing we were rehearsing for Just Cause. And no one knew that weekend, these Panamanian thugs were going to kill a couple of American officers and, sexually assault an American officer's wife. Long story short, George Bush took action, and we were on the point of the spear, as you both know. So when I got the platoon together, one of my squad leaders told me, because no one in the platoon knows this is real world. One of my squad leaders, who then went on to the unit and became an officer, he goes, Sergeant Grippe, those 3rd Ranger Battalion gun sheets have live ammunition on it. So now the cat's out of the bag. What am I going to tell them? So we weren't in the remote marshalling base yet. So I broke OPSEC, and I'm like, listen, I just put everyone at attention, put them at ease. I go, listen up, Rangers, look at your watch. It's 2300. Okay. Monday night. And I go in little over 24 hours, we will be exiting aircraft over Rio Hato, Panama, to take down Noriega and bring some peace and security to that country. Ooh. I'll tell you what, that whole Ranger platoon looked at me. The eyes went like that for like just a fraction of a second. I always get teary-eyed. I won't today though. But those guys, for that fraction of a second, everything just startled. Eyes went wide, and a fraction of a second later, weapons are up in the air, and they're all yelling, "Whoa!" You gotta love the Rangers. So, we put them, back into formation and off the remote marshalling base we went, and with that whole procedure. And about 24 hours later, only Rangers could do this. No sleep, no rest. There's an ice storm going on. We're in a remad, and we jump out under fire and crawl on Rio Hato. And there was never a lot of, attention given to that flight. But if you really want to understand discipline, small unit training, and teamwork and people standing up, oh my God, what a fight, what a brawl. And by sunup, I mean, 99% of the mission was complete, and a few days later, Noriega turned himself in. We had some other follow-up missions, with both, security operations and, right after the jump, about a day and a half later, we went on a couple of adventures with our unit buddies, acting as positions. Away we went. And then from there, I kept the platoon. I was promoted about 2 years later. No, about a year and a half later, I came up on a promotion list, and, maneuver off to the 3 shop, where I never wanted to be a staff NCO, but Sergeant Major Magana.
Yeah.
Old Franco, he's like, listen, stop your whining. He goes, either go take, I had no clue here. This is an honor. I'm going into a master sergeant position. Hell, now it's a sergeant major position. He's making me the ops. He's like, hey, either go there, or you could go find another position down the road in Legland. I mean, so whatever. So then I spent about a little over 2 years as non-promotable sergeant first class. And from there, that's where I really learned the bigger picture, the whole government approach. A lot of what we made successful in the war on terror, we were already doing in the Joint Special Operations Command with our combined joint interagency task force and so forth, whole government approach. We were doing those type of operations. So by the time I met, Private Chris Paranto, I was a brand new first sergeant, but I was highly tenured with that bigger knowledge. And then obviously at the tactical level, supporting the rifle companies, all their training and all that. So, when I linked up with, Captain LaCamera back then, I was fully prepared and knowledgeable in a humble sense, to be able to take BCO and carry on, as maybe not as well as first as my good buddy Carlton Dietrich, but to keep up to that big boots. And if you could see the big boots involved from the very beginning, BCO, it's amazing.
And just the blessing. Blessing. I guess I look back, like I got to serve as a private for Dietrich and Grippe. At the first time I was in, and then is he lieutenant general now, the camera, or is he even higher than that now?
So Paul and I went on to clandestinely, I can't even use that word. I mean, God bless it. We had that incident on Super Bowl Sunday, the great engineer raid that I guess we could save for another time over a beer, and we can't count that. We actually linked back up in the 10th Mountain Division. As a command sergeant major, I went up to the 10th Mountain Division going, oh my God, I'm going to a leg unit. And it's in my home state.
You're going home, yeah.
Army, that means the Army probably wants me to retire, and they're trying to save on movement monies. So they're sending me back home. What an idiot as you grow up and you mature. But that was my attitude out of that Sergeant Major's Academy. It's like, you just expect you're going to go back to a jump unit, maneuver back in as a in CSM. Long story short, I linked up with another Ranger hero, Kurt Fuller, who went on to be a flag officer and doing great things as a division commander, brigade commanders in combat, same thing at the time. So, I had a year with Kurt Fuller, Ranger Fuller, and then, my old company commander shows up, Paul LaCamera, and, the rest is sort of history. We did a change of command. We went down to West Point for the summer. We were the Army tasked battalion to support cadet training at West Point. We came home, refit for a couple of weeks, went on leave for a couple of weeks, came back. We are just getting ready to go back into training where, the incident of 9/11 happened. And again, the rest is history, as a non-division ready force 1 unit, as a unit that was not receiving replacements because all the other units in the 10th Mountain World missions, Bosnia, Kosovo, Sinai. Here's this understrength battalion. We blow out to Uzbekistan in support of, our nation's first hits, into Afghanistan, and there was a lack of or should I say, units to conduct quick reactionary force activities for the combined force over there, our combined special operation force, which was led by 5th Group, obviously. Colonel now then retired General Mulholland. But the honor was this guy. He watched the way we acted, and we could go into the aspects of standards and discipline now. But here's a typical light infantry unit, and this is the beauty of being in war for all these years. The Ranger Regiment mentality implanted on a normal infantry unit, made them a higher trained and standard unit. And the Special Forces guys could see that immediately. So when it came time to choose a quick reactionary force, well, he didn't get a Ranger company, but he got one of our rotating infantry companies from the 10th Mountain, 1st Battalion, 87th Infantry, to the top. May I say, we were the first ones in Afghanistan, the first conventional troops in there. And, again, that was another period of my career where it's like, these standards, these discipline tactics, it works. The way we motivate, the way we instruct and mentor, it works.
Yeah.
Again, those are some things I wanted to throw in on combat. And again, from there, it's, I'm doing too much talking.
No, yeah, we want you to.
When I do these type of talks and interviews, I just hope that someone in the audience could grab one of these golden nuggets of information.
Oh, they will.
In his or her rucksack and use it either like now or in the future.
Absolutely.
For things, both in the military and in business. Because a lot of what we do in the military obviously translate directly to business.
Yeah, Chris knows that, I think, better than most. The fact that you do all these corporate speeches, I think a lot of people realize that, the civilian and soldier gap, it's not as far apart as we make it out to be sometimes.
Just understanding the nomenclatures and all that in the business world and so forth. And, on our part, erasing a lot of the stigma that comes out of warfare in our soldiers when it comes to post-traumatic and other wounds. A lot of time civilian entities, they'll talk about wanting to hire veterans, but a lot of times, they're scared about it. And the one thing I'll say is that, veterans, especially combat veterans, we don't need sympathy. You know what I mean? What we need is to get out there and make an impact with everything we know. As simple as that. As simple as that. Now, I'm all about, thank you for your service. And, sometimes I'm a wise ass. I'm like, well, thanks for paying your taxes. Thoroughly enjoyed bringing some of America's finest young men and women into combat and destroying, the enemies of the free world. But
are you translating some of that today? Because for you lived your entire adult life up to recently in the military. It's a 34-year-long career. So now in like this current phase of where you're at in life, have you taken those lessons into business, into other things?
I have definitely. And it's always a learning process, and it's always understanding the mentality, the actual cost benefit analysis. Where in the military, what we do, it's mission completion, it's mission success. It's training for a certain event. It's a military activity, and you gotta win. It's bringing peace and security. The whole aspect I always believe in. It's the U.S. military that, provides the majority of peace and security around the world on a daily basis, just by the way we're based in our missions.
Yeah.
Keep a lot of these, these psycho actors, in a certain place where they're more manageable. We keep the airways open, the seaways open. Like I tell people on Wall Street, it's like, you're great for the American economy. All right. You generate revenue, but I'll tell you what, If it wasn't for our folks out there on the border with North Korea, if it wasn't for the fleets out there keeping sea lanes open and so forth, and the Air Force, what they're doing, and the boots on the ground that the Army and the Marines provide, I mean, Bud, this world would be in total disorder. And I truly believe that, because everyone here, for the most part, has been overseas and experienced that. Simple as it. So, our young men and women, they do a great deed for this country, and we're all humble about it, and we don't need any sympathy. But again, we need great overwatch from the government, from the Veterans Administration, when it comes to the treatment of, both, the open wounds that we received,
Sure,
as well as, the post-traumatics and those hidden wounds. So, we don't need sympathy, but, we're a special breed of people that go out there and do wonderful things out there in the civilian community. And across the board, we are every day. I could talk all day about, Ranger officer friends of mine, and not just Rangers, but, across the whole spectrum, and NCO friends of mine include, junior enlisted people who go out there and just make a killing, in business. It's amazing. The amount of people I've seen who come in the Army and in the military as a whole from some of the worst conditions in America, the broken families, the abuse, growing up on the wrong side of the tracks, everyone I name it. And then go into the military and just catch that spirit of discipline and organization and become a great citizen. That's what we do in the military, as well as win our nation's wars. We build great citizens.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't talk about that enough.
Yeah, you know what I wanted to ask you about? Because as you were just saying, how people in America in the corporate world, they get to do all this business internationally, and you're like, but if it wasn't for the military protecting us and being in all these places, you wouldn't be able to do what you do. So, I mean, it's kind of been a theme on the show, I think, with Chris and I speaking with veterans, and everybody has a different opinion on this. I don't think there's like a right or wrong answer, but like from someone who's had the 37-year-long military career, who's done things on your level, we often talk about the whole military being the world police. And there's always those people who say our military is spread too thin. Why do we have bases in Japan? Why do we have bases in Korea? Why is the military everywhere? Shouldn't the military just be about protecting America and our interests? I just want to know from your perspective, is it good that we have military bases everywhere on the globe?
Well, that's a great point. I mean, this nation provides more blood and treasure daily to help keep peace and security around the world. And in an economic sense, peace and security lends to what? It lends to where people could earn money, people could spend money. There's products that are available, and there's a higher standard of lifestyle for people across the board. Security, judicial, medical, people have a better lifestyle. But without security, the simplicity of security, well, you can't have that. And that is what the military provides. There's the acronym DIME, the diplomatic, the information, the military, the economics. It's a real simple acronym, but when you look at it hard, the diplomacy that the United States conducts worldwide is ultra important. Is we build great relations, both with, friendly nations we want to positively influence, and our competitors, and bottom line, in our world, our enemies out there. We know who our enemies are. Our friends next door in the State Department, work and sell, they may call them competitors. In the military cell, it's like it's only a certain amount of time that a balloon goes up, and they're going to understand what 7.62, 5.56 marksmanship, NCO leadership, and jams are. Simple as that. You know what I mean? But the bottom line is, why do we have bases around the world? Because since the end of World War II, we have influence around the world to help with security. Why do we have bases in South Korea, for instance? That should be pretty obvious. The problem is, academia wise, we're forgetting the aspect of World War I, World War II, the Cold War era, and a lot of the brush fire issues that have happened since the fall of the Soviet Union and now the rise of China, in the brush war issues, in some of the issues with our religious fanatics, and just tribal issues in here and there around the world. Rwanda, for instance. So why do we have people that are on float? Why do we have the Air Force monitoring different airlanes? Why do we have the Army boots on the ground in like 125 plus countries conducting theater security cooperation so we can better these countries so they can better secure themselves and have a better standard of living? The bottom line up front, the United States goes out of its way to help bring peace and security. It's as simple as that. And it takes our military to have boots on the ground to do that. And I just want to throw this in there. I'll tell you what. When I talk to the whole of government approach people and so forth, and we're talking strategy, and I'm looking at all the interagencies, and I'm looking at the bigger picture, and especially with the other services. We'll talk about the Pacific, for instance. It's a naval and it's an Air Force major operation in the Pacific. But then again, command sergeants, majors, we're the commanders of common sense. So I like to tell people, 1 inch of Pacific Ocean where a human being lives. There's like, I think 15 plus of the mega cities of the world are out in the Pacific region. People live on land, and it takes boots on the ground to influence that. And the more theater security cooperation we do, to provide to our foreign partners, the better off we're going to be. And let them secure their own nations and let them help provide, that buffer between the competitor China, or in Eastern Europe, the competitor Russia. See where I'm going with this? Or in the Middle East, the competitor Iran, that we're not supposedly at war at, but they're at war with us. North Korea, we're supposedly not in an active war with North Korea, but we've never signed, an actual peace agreement with the North Koreans. So if you wonder why there's American forces there, because it goes right back to the ending of hostilities, open hostilities in the Korean War. And what we do when you put American forces on the ground somewhere, that sends a message to the bad people within that nation that want to overthrow a government, or those nations within the periphery that either want to influence or take that land for themselves and that nation for themselves. That means they got to specifically deal with us. And again, one of the things I want to talk about, and it's not always they're going to specifically just deal with the United States, but they're going to deal with our partners. We work with alliances, we work in partnerships, and that's what helps keep the world at a slow boil. You see that continually in the Middle East and the Far East, influence, both diplomatically, militarily, and especially militarily. That's what really keeps the peace. I want to talk real quick about theater security cooperation, how important it is for our military and as a nation. Back when I was the Central Command Senior Leader, we had the Arab Spring happened. We had issues we still have the issues in Syria. We had issues in Tunisia. And even at the time, the Muslim Brotherhood, was elected democratically, as the leaders of Egypt. Well, after a little bit of time, the people of Egypt, they found their folly by having these people as their leaders. So you could call it a full coup, a soft coup, a military coup, whatever you happen. The Muslim Brotherhood was taken out of the government within Egypt. And obviously you had this flashpoint there. Why? Because Egypt is one of the most influential Arab states. This canal, this commerce continually flows through there. One of our partner nations, Israel, has a lot of sensitivity, obviously, to what the Egyptians are up to. And for the most part, here's the point I want to make. the commander-in-chief of, the commander-in-chief of the Egyptian Armed Forces was a guy named General Assisi. He's now the president of that country.
Yeah.
He had, from a young lieutenant, he had exercised with the Americans, been to our schools.
Yeah.
He knew General Mattis, the CENTCOM commander at the time. He knew and went to school with our current or our present chairman of the Joint Chiefs at the time. Okay. So the point I want to make is when we reach out through theater security cooperation, a lot of these young lieutenants and officers, they grew up to be the leaders of those nations. And when all hell was breaking loose in Egypt, what you didn't see was what you saw in Libya, as you well know, Chris, where the Gaddafi's army was just slaughtering the population. You didn't see like you saw in Syria, where Assad and his forces were just slaughtering the population. What you saw in Egypt was a professional military secure the Suez Canal and provide, emergency service and law enforcement to the peoples of Egypt. And it became a good news story. And that only happened because of our influence in that nation. And most of all, because of our military influence through theater security cooperation. So again, I tell people, back in the day, theater security cooperation was, you sent a Ranger company or, an Army unit somewhere, you outshoot, you out road march, you out hand-to-hand combat, you drink more, you tear up local villages in that country, you hug and kiss and you go back home. Well, now there's more of a doctrine to it. We like to go there, we like to understand the culture, we like to get involved with the culture, and we like to show their military and their law enforcement and the people themselves, just the goodness of what we do and how they need to mirror us to have that positive effect in their nation. So I had a couple of things I wanted to bring up. That was one of the talking points, theater security cooperation. All right.
I don't want to make sure I'm not going to cut you off until you're, because this is,
cut me off. You guys are on a timeline. I don't even know how.
Well, no, my thing is, doing this and spending 10 years of my own self overseas in many of these countries as well. One thing I did see, and as far as presence of American units or the agency itself, or when I was with the agency, some of these countries that I felt when we left were better off having a dictator in charge. Libya, for one. Libya is way worse than it was, I believe, when Gaddafi was. So presence, when do we only have a presence? What, in your opinion, and when do we go too far and say, okay, we need to actually input or start to influence militarily with weapon systems? Oh my gosh, now we just created a vacuum of power. We screwed this place. I mean, Egypt, you're right. Egypt, I believe they did it correct because they had some military leaders that were U.S. trained. They go by U.S. doctrine. Of course, Syria and Libya did not. And I spent a lot of time in that area, as far as you know. I mean, as you know, but my thing again is that, all right, we fucked these places up worse because the devil we knew was a lot better than the devil we didn't. And honestly, the politicians up top didn't take responsibility for that. So without getting into the politics of it, where do we cross the line? Where do we maintain a presence? And then at what point do we need to cross the line and be like, okay, now we need to start kicking some ass?
Exactly.
Or when do we make the wrong call? I believe we did make the wrong call in Libya. I love being there. Don't get me, I love doing what we've taken arms off the market, catching Al-Qaeda, who was now in there when Gaddafi left. They started to fly in Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb and Ansar Sharia and Rafah al-Zahateh. But looking back on it now, I'm like, God dang, that country, honestly, I think it was better off with Gaddafi in charge. Yeah, he was a nut. Yeah, his army, if you crossed him, he's gonna have his female security guards come up and probably rip your scrotum off. It's gonna happen. But gosh dang, they have nothing now. It's a failed state.
Exactly.
So what's you've been up top, you've seen the bigger picture. I haven't. I've been on the ground more than anything. But when do we not do that? When do we just say, okay, we're just going to be a presence here? And then the public says, oh, you ain't doing shit for them. Well, wait a second. If we do, we're going to make it worse. They don't understand. So the pressures that get put on y'all to make a call and then also to stand by that call. But I guess it's just, I'm confused because I don't think we always need to go in and kill every dictator out there, because I've just seen from experience, and specifically those two countries, that we made it work. In my opinion, the people are worse off because there's nothing
You
there.
know, Chris, those are some great points. And if you look back in history, especially since the end of World War II, as a nation, we've always been helpful. We're always giving.
No.
But North Korea, after all the blood and treasure that we spent and are still spending, we're still a pain in the world's ass.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a proxy of China. I mean, obviously, you can't say that because
we're a presence, and that's great.
Yeah.
I think that is correct. We're a presence. We're not going in there as far as people know and doing things, but
we're that influencing buffer.
But we're influence. Yeah, we're right there in Syria and Libya. I think we crossed the line. We weren't a buffer of anything. We just went in there.
Right.
The words of Hillary Clinton, we saw he died, and she laughed, cackled like a witch. We really made those countries, because I did see that from when we first got in after Gaddafi, and the country actually was still kind of stable. The NTC was working, the National Transitional Council, and then it just went into disarray.
Exactly, because in obviously in those cultures, the power play is the power play.
Yeah.
Most powerful people will rule the people. And for the most part, democracy is a great way of doing business if you have a population that can actually understand and make use of democracy. And see, for a military person like myself that gets involved with the M in dime, as I grew up with who? The messaging to the information, the economics, and obviously with the diplomacy aspect.
Yeah.
Both military and civilian diplomacy. So to get to your point, the United States over the years, we have definitely made some mistakes. I mean, we left Eastern Europe to the Soviets. Do you imagine if we didn't do that? We let Chinese communists run Chiang Kai-shek or Allen, off the Chinese mainland. Can you imagine if we didn't do that?
Wow.
I mean, there'd be a lot more peace on earth.
Oh yeah.
We're going to have this Taiwan issue going on right now. Right?
Yeah.
I could go on and on. We won't even get into Vietnam. I mean, the blood and treasure we put into Southeast Asia,
and then give it
and smoke like that just because. So again, what you're talking about with Libya and Syria, and there's other nations out there, it's nothing new. Our nation has to come to terms with, understanding the human terrain, the cost of doing business, cost benefit analysis. It's a business term, but something, it's strategically used also when looking at that broader spectrum of dealing with nations.
But the cost is lives, though. We're not talking about money. We're talking about guys dying, and that better than anybody. That
exactly. It's our lives.
Yeah,
it's our treasure. And then, like you said, if we go in and break something, it's on us, the United States.
Yeah.
And if we go in as a coalition, it's on the United States and that coalition.
And the coalition,
to make things right. And you got to be patient while you're doing that.
Yeah.
And you got to understand that, we're going to be dealing with nefarious people in a lot of the places of the world that we operate. Why? Because that's the way those people have survived for centuries. I mean, that's the way those people have survived for centuries, which brings me right back to my DNA bloodline. People wondered why I jumped out of planes for 34 years. And I mean, you're half Sicilian and half Scotch Irish. Yeah, it's sort of in your bloodline to do that. But at the same time, when you break it down tactically and understand the nations you're going in, you got to understand what that human terrain is and the reason why. Why they're friendly to certain nations, why they're not friendly to other nations. What is the reason why, we're thinking militarily of going into a nation? What was the reason for us to militarily go into Libya? What was the reason why militarily we went into Iraq or into Afghanistan? I mean, some of those are easy questions. Other questions you got to ask yourself. It's like, God bless it. at the time it sounded good. Let's drop
Yeah.
some. We'll
We'll
put some advisors on the ground. Oh, well, it takes more than advisors. Let's go in there. We'll put some infantry on the ground.
And it just keeps escalating. It just keeps getting bigger.
Exactly.
And bigger. Yeah.
Exactly. Because a lot of times we don't do the right human terrain analysis. And even when we go in there, like we did in Iraq, we could talk this all day.
Oh yeah.
So why did we take all the basis out of civil government and out of the police and the teachers and all this? All these just normal Iraqis, but they're Baathists. Why? Because, well, if I don't pledge allegiance to Saddam, I'm going to die. How hard is that to figure out?
Yeah.
Which let not only a hard time for the United States and our coalition forces, but look at the tragedy of the people of Iraq. So I don't want to all touchy-feely here. But the older I get, you can't help but feel for people.
Of course.
When the answer is, sometimes people just need to die up front, or there's a quick military action that needs to happen up front. And that sometimes, keeping a nation with the lid on allows that nation to become stronger, have more negative influence, and in the long run, militarily, as in your case, you're going to have to go in there and take care of the situation. And by then the population has been messaged and trained, and they only understand one issue and they hate America. So it just makes it harder on us.
Sure.
So again, you're right, Chris. This is a never-ending issue with a superpower called the United States. When does diplomacy end in the big stick of military? The military option of theater security cooperation, Title 50 operations, supporting other insurgents within a country. When does that come to an end? And we overtly, get involved in the nation. Case in point, look at Ukraine. Can you imagine? It's 2023. You got a has-been leader called Putin in a has-been country who hasn't done anything positive on the world stage since prior to the Bolshevik Revolution. And since they became a communist nation, and supposedly they're not communists anymore, but, what have they done positively on the world stage? It's 100+ years. They produce some good weapons. They got some good caviar. They make some decent vodka. Really, what have they done positively on the world stage?
Yeah.
So now they're in Ukraine, just causing havoc. It's 2023, and how does the world stand by and we'll provide a few weapons and whatever Title 50 operations are going on? And in this psychopath Putin is just slaughtering people. I mean, think about that. So what's the cost benefit operation of us going into Ukraine? And that's what I wanted to throw right back in there, Chris. So there's what happened in Syria and still going on in Syria.
Yeah.
We still got boots on the ground in Syria.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's still Al Qaeda. There's still ISIS.
Yeah.
We got the issues in Libya. We have Islamic, terrorists operating from Nigeria all the way to Somalia across the northern half of Africa.
But that's been there since since 93. I mean, even before that, since 93, since Black Hawk Down. I mean, since
exactly.
Danny
to
and
Ian's point, why do we have these bases all over the world? Again, the logistics aspects of it, the aspect of the American flag being planted somewhere in support of a region or a certain nation, and to help quell issues within that region or that nation itself. But again, diplomacy and the military aspect of it, and then the economics involved, obviously. That's a science and art there. So, that's beyond my pay grade, although everything you've talked about, I've also experienced in a negative way. When I retired out of my last unit in Central Command, there was some issues going on in Syria where, a little of that, literally a little of that, not, we could have had our Arab partners, take care of most of that. And we could have stood back with logistics and intel. And that situation would be over and the people wouldn't be suffering. Nor, if you really want to get into a historical, discussion, with ISIS had matured to the fact where they took down half of Iraq. You see where I'm going with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I just point out
middle province and in Mosul are completely destroyed.
Yeah.
So again, there's times where, and I'm going to let Ian ask this question. And I got.
Yeah, it's not even a question, but you keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, it's there's times where doing a SmackDown is better than using diplomacy.
That's
United Nations embargoes on people, because why? The normal people just suffer.
That's it. That's all. The higher ups don't. They keep going. That's what I've always said. Ranger up. Let's go in, hit them real hard, kick the shit out of them, get out of there, and say, "Don't do this anymore." And they do it again. Get it in there, knock them the fuck out, get out of there. And
you just got to have the right people within the country to be able to take charge of the government and care for the people. And that's the hard part. Because
all I was gonna
go ahead, Ian. I'm sorry.
No. Well, all I was gonna say though, it's no. We're good, and I'll pass it back to Chris because I'm sure he has other things. But I think Chris probably notices this, and I noticed it, and it's like this is why I love doing the podcast, because it is a true representation that the military is not a monolith. In that, Chris knows this, right? There's probably people listening to this show who have a ton of military experience who are going, "No, we shouldn't be anywhere. We shouldn't be in Ukraine. We shouldn't be sending them billions of dollars." And I understand all perspectives. And it's just why I think when you turn on the TV news media, you might think that the military all has one opinion. When you do a show like this, and I hear someone like DevGru veteran Kristen Beck, who is way more non-interventionist than you, and then I hear from Sergeant Major Frank Grippe, a totally different expert opinion, it's interesting to hear, and it gives some perspective on things, because I think you make some great points, and I also think Chris makes some great points saying we've screwed up a lot of countries that we shouldn't have been in. That's my only point. But anyway, I'll get it back to Chris.
That's what I love about.
I'm here to concur with Chris. I mean, there's a lot of suffering going on in the world because of either our lack of military strike or our lack of diplomacy.
Well, let's
leaders were brought on board.
Well, let's go into because you and I spent a lot of years in this country, and I know I know we haven't talked about it, but I know you got feelings. Look at Afghanistan. I mean, you were an Anaconda. I mean, I want to know how just as a leader you could teach so many people how to lead people under distress when you're in Operation Anaconda. But what did you think? And Afghanistan, go kill the Taliban. Hell yeah, go kill. Okay, yeah, fuck yeah, do we need to be there forever? No, it's not gonna. That's just how they're not gonna get democratic. That's fine. Should we leave like we did? Fuck no, we fucked them over. That was a travesty in my opinion, the way we left. But what's your feeling on that? On just being in Afghanistan, you spent a lot of years. You saw a lot of bloodshed. I know you lost some soldiers there, but you saw a lot of heroism as well. In particular, your own heroism there. But when you leave after 20 years, what goes through your head? I know a lot of my buddies, it hurt them. They went down some slippery slopes. We got them out of it, but it was what the fuck. I know some of you probably went to you and said to themselves, why did I spend my life here and waste my time? I miss family time because of what do you think? I'm glad we went. I enjoyed every place I went. I am gonna lie. I enjoyed being on the ground. I enjoyed the job. I enjoyed working with the guys. I loved it. You see how I'm getting, and I'm an old fart now, and I still I loved it. But I do. When I'm looking back on some of the places now, going, shit, man, diplomacy, my ass. It wasn't the soldier, it wasn't the Ranger, the SEAL, the Marine, the airman that fucked this place up. It was the diplomacy after and politicians. Exactly. But that's my opinion. What do you think, man? What's your feeling when we left Afghanistan?
No, you're right. We pulling the rug out of our Afghan.
Yeah, that's really what we did. Yeah.
I mean, there's not enough adjectives to be able to explain the heartbreak. I mean, literally, simply as that.
Yeah.
And strategically, we've done that so many times around the world.
Yeah.
At the tactical level, my heart's aching. And at the strategic level, as a nation, it's like, what are we displaying here? I mean, really?
Yeah.
I mean, the day it was announced we were pulling out, I was teaching a class, mentoring a class, should I say, with, Major General retired Chin, regional leader development class. And as people were pretty spun up over Afghanistan, not that I wasn't spun up about the tactical level and the death and destruction with both my Afghan partners, all the other nations that fought there with me. I've lost MRI friends there. I mean, there's a whole picture, you know what I mean? Brits. But, I made this assessment. So as a nation, we just provided China
Yeah.
the last link
Yeah.
from the Chinese-Afghan border. Pakistan, that the Chinese are highly influencing now because of our lack of. Afghanistan has all this rare earth minerals. Who do you think is going to go there and mine it?
Chinese. Yeah.
And next door is who? The Iranians.
Iranians. Yep. Up in
And who are the
Iraq.
Iranians proxies to? China,
China.
Russia. Now you go through southern Iraq, where the Iranians have that influence in southern Iraq because of the Shia population, even though
Sure.
there is a disconnect, obviously, thank God, between the Persians and the Arabs.
Yep.
But then you go right where? You go right into Lebanon, into the Bekaa Valley, all the way to the Litani River. So the Chinese now have this arc of influence from their border all the way to the border of Israel. And within that is all this rare earth metals, petroleum assets, in nations that just want to cause chaos, like Syria, like the Iranians. So you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
There's more than just a heartbreak for the Afghan people. For our nation, there's a heartbreak. How can we even think about that when we were taking zero casualties? And whatever the data points are, there's going to be data point people going, oh, this guy's command sergeant major doesn't know the true data points. But yeah, I've been retired 8 years and I try to keep up on stuff. But bottom line up front, we had a couple thousand troops there, and just as many, if not more, coalition partners there, keeping the lid on the kettle. All my Pashtun brothers and sisters and as we all know, this, that not every Taliban is a Pashtun.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Seeing a guy with a white guy with a
rephrase
long
that.
beard. Yeah, go ahead. I seen a white guy with a long ass beard. Like, holy shit. Where'd he come from?
Yeah, not every Pashtun is a Taliban is what I wanted to say, but
it's true.
Every Taliban is a Pashtun. That's the tribe they come from. That's the dominant tribe. So how do we screw up the human terrain by not dealing better with that tribe? You see where I'm going with that?
I got you. No,
just get up one day when the lid is on, everything's fine. The Taliban understand that, okay, we may not be under as much threat as a year ago or 2 years ago, but why are we, as a nation, how do you just throw the people under the rug like that?
Yeah.
So, Chris, we could go on and on about that. There's a strategic level mistake of doing that no one wants to talk about. And then there's the human terrain and there's the empathy for peoples across the spectrum. Those Uzbeks, those Kiris, the Hazaras.
The Hazaras are getting wiped. They were getting people when that was going on. They hit a Hazara school and killed 60. When Biden said, "Let's leave," people, and we didn't get any report of that. I saw that on. It was an Al Jazeera. It was an Arab report where right when we were leaving, guess what the Taliban hit? They hit a Hazara school and they killed 60 kids. I know we have shootings here. God forbid any kid that dies anywhere in the world. But holy crap, did you see what were just happening? And the news didn't report any of that. They didn't say nothing about 60 Hazara kids being killed. So having a presence is important.
I crack up when I watch the news. I don't even want to get into this insurgency in America and the messaging and the lack of any knowledge of what's going on here amongst our own population. I'll just leave it at that. But when I hear these news agencies spun up because the Taliban aren't allowing women to go to school, I mean, really?
What the fuck did you think was going to happen? Really? I know.
Really?
Hey, but they said they were going to let him. Come on, man. They told that their Taliban spokesman said everything. We're going to be fine. Yeah.
Chris, Ian, I don't know how much more time we got, but one of the things I want to do, as a retired command sergeant major, obviously, I ended up in positions where I had to be able to articulate. I had to be able to advise people.
You are very articulate for a Ranger, especially one that's come in. You're extremely articulate. You haven't cussed one time, and I've cussed like 20 times. But don't get me wrong, guys. This guy can cuss, and he can scare the shit out you. Believe me, I tell you what.
My wife's, she works in a think tank for USAA.
Oh,
that's you right now saying that.
Sorry,
would run right out. He can't talk without dropping an F-bomb.
That's hilarious.
But the thing is, Chris, you mentioned Operation Anaconda.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the biggest fights we've been in since the Vietnam era.
It was huge. And you were
the highest altitude fight the United States has ever fought in. And when you think about it, when you look back at that, that's still being studied today for the fact that we took this ad hoc element of special operators across a broad spectrum, our Afghan partners, the anti-Taliban forces, Northern Alliance, in a group of conventional military, and placed us in this valley.
In the worst possible place you could be, in smack dab in the bowl.
Well, something, I made some comments on the news. The commander of the 10th Mountain, for whatever reason, because I had that little scratch on my ass, and I couldn't go back to the valley, or the JSOC surgeon said he will immediately send me out of country, evac me to Germany. So I had to go report to him to go get my,
I didn't know that. Oh,
yeah.
What happened?
I had to go, get my bandages changed twice a day, at the JMOW, so they could keep.
Yeah.
I wasn't running wild somewhere. Well, anyway, the point I want to make is, listen, for all the military people out there, the basics of the basics coordinate directly to success in combat. So the simplicity of wearing your uniform properly, the simplicity of being able to keep your haircut or your hairdos proper, your weapons properly attained, the aspect of the big four, understanding marksmanship, just not on your personal weapon, but across a broader spectrum.
Yeah.
Understanding advanced medical training.
Yeah.
Just make you a PA or a complete medic, but the confidence behind that, and to be able to save lives when needed. And then your physical fitness and combatives.
Oh yeah, especially at that altitude.
How intelligent you are. If you can't go from point to point B, and fight upon arrival, you're not worth anything to the taxpayers. And the combatives, it's another great workout. And we're not trying to make ninjas.
No.
What we're trying to do is build confidence. And when the time comes and you get in that situation, you could get after it and take down an opponent and kill the son of a bitch if need be. And then finally, your tactics. I call it the big four. You know what I mean? The big four. You got to understand some tactics. I don't care if you're a medic wearing cushy white shoes, if you're flying from forward operating base to another and you go down in enemy territory, guess what? You are now a rifleman, doc.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to understand some tactics. But when you blend all that together, and not just in one part of the force, but the entire force, that's where you have this cohesive force that can go anywhere in the world and make a difference. And one of the things I used to tell people, it's like, if you can't do the basics of the basics, how do I know in the midst of a gunfight, you're going to be able to reduce stoppage on your automatic weapon? I mean, what was that? So we could talk the strategies about nations and DIME and combined joint interagency task force and how it all works. But it all boils down to this. And I meant to bring this in here earlier. The whole national asset of our government has one mission in life, and that's to support the rifle platoon on the ground. From all the different agencies, the three letters, the intel, all the spookiness, all our special operation friends, like I tell people, I don't care how many infiltration, techniques you're trained in. If you don't have the spirit of the bayonet, when that time comes, guess what? Give me a 19 or an 18-year-old infantry.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm serious. And so a lot of people are saying, oh, look at this asshole. But I'm serious.
It's true.
A lot of us have been there. And some of my special friends of mine, they're still on and will agree with me because we have these conversations. And those of you on the periphery that understand, if you don't know, you don't know. And if you do know, you know. I'm telling you, I got to put that message out. You got to train the basics. What the hell's in the box before you think out of the box. Okay?
And that's what Ranger Battalion did for me.
Exactly.
Discipline and fundamentals, because it doesn't change. Fundamentals are still fundamentals, even when you are special, like special of the special, you're still working fundamentals. You're just a little bit better at those fundamentals now. You've trained at a level that when you hit the no shit fan, that you can still reach that highest level of training, whatever it may be. That's something I learned from you. It's something I learned from Sergeant Henderson, who was, that dude's rangered out, the Herminator. I tell you what, having him as a squad leader. And something I learned from, when I was with Sergeant Rothke when I came in later, and from
Rothke, good man.
It was, you will always fall back on your highest level of training. That's why we're making you suck today. That's why you're going to walk to range, what was it, 81 or whatever it was, instead of riding the bus or riding the truck, because you need to walk and then get on the line and start shooting. It's because we're going to push your training levels. Yeah.
No, I got you, Chris. Hey, one of the things I wanted to tie that into Operation Anaconda.
Yes.
The bottom line is, this sole 10th Mountain Battalion that had spent the previous summer at West Point, the entire summer. When we deployed, Thank God I had enough paratrooper NCOs and Ranger former NCOs where we could, outload in a proper sense and get over it in Uzbekistan and operate with our Uzbek hosts and our special operators and guard a base in a foreign country with live ammo, carrying grenades around, and actually doing patrols around the base because of the threat from the Taliban, from Al Qaeda and the Islamic movement of Uzbekistan. I'd have my young infantry out there patrolling with this Uzbek Special Operation Forces. And that sounds all fun and sexy, but think about if that one young infantryman, had an accidental discharge on his weapon and killed an Uzbek, or one of my guys walking around with grenades, let a grenade run wild in the chow hall and it blew up. I mean, think of that. All those little things that people take for granted, that's training, that's discipline. And then to move that force as a QRF into Afghanistan and to conduct combat operations, trying to, regain Mike Spann's body at Quality Prison. I had guys in gunfights there.
And that was Extortion 17, right?
Pardon?
That was Extortion 17.
No, that was farther into the flight there.
Oh, okay.
And that was an aircraft that got shot down with a SEAL element that was going into a Ranger objective.
Yeah, I know the name. Now that I'm thinking, Mike Spann. This was the first casualties, right?
Yeah, he was CIA.
Mike was CIA case. He was a CIA case officer. He was a Marine officer, and then he got caught with the who was the damn white Taliban guy? The first.
The youngster from Virginia. The fifth.
Oh, Johnny Jihad.
Johnny Jihad, but whatever the hell his real name was.
A lot of stories behind that guy too. We won't go there until about 40 years from now. But to take that battalion, and I'm humbly saying this, to take that battalion and then insert it into a hostile valley where we knew there was going to be some bad guys there. But to land a force in a valley, and where we landed was more like a freaking gorge. To land a force in the middle of an enemy kill box, and that's what it was, a kill box. And to be able to turn that kill box into an American victory.
Unbelievable.
After the Russians with all the air support, with tanks, artillery, we had none of that except for the air support. But to be able to go in that valley and to turn an enemy kill box into an American victory again. And I get teary-eyed about that, thinking about those young who's out there, but it all boils on to everything I just talked about. The discipline, the standards, the big four.
Fundamentals.
That's
Fundamentals. It does. You guys were, I honestly, hey, Sergeant Major, I studied that. I studied when that happened and I started going, that was one of the battles I studied, because it was not just the intestinal fortitude and perseverance, but you guys rock solid with those mortars from bang, from day. People realize how hard that is. And that just says a lot for discipline, and it says a lot for training and knowing your job, and not instinctive, but having those habit forming movements that you can just, I'm on it. I don't even, my brain's thinking about it, but I'm not really thinking about it. I'm just dropping this tube and I'm hitting where I want to hit. And then when I saw I didn't even know you were there. And then I read your name and I was like, holy shit. This son's a bitch is sitting there dropping mortars. He should be.
We get around.
That's awesome. I think that's a good place to end it, because I mean, we've covered a ton of territory here. We could definitely do more in the future. I don't know if Chris has anything else.
I would like to, because you know what we didn't get into. We talked a little bit politics. That what I'd like to get into, and you have such a good grasp on it, especially jumping in with when you're an E6 and then actually Anaconda growing down and all the stuff, is talking and teaching people how to deal with stress and still command people, still lead troops when there's so much stress involved. And that's something that, we're going for another. That's why I'd like to have you on again, so we can maybe just delve into that.
Yeah, we could do that. We'll leave. I was going to say, we'll leave the people, wanting some more, but what were you saying?
So one of the points I have written, I got a bunch of scribble thoughts here. One of the points we didn't bring up was just that. We talked about having no sympathy. Not having no sympathy. Let me rephrase that. We don't need a bunch of sympathy. Do we need some action to help a lot of our veterans? Of course we do. You know what I mean? But for the most part, we didn't get into the resiliency aspect of it. The mind, body, spirit, the unit, your family, how to take care of all that. We didn't talk about the ongoing operations and how a lot of people will come back from the fight and then start training up for the next deployment and not get that surgery done.
Yeah.
Not go see the counselor just to talk a few things out, not to take care of that family issue. I had some key leaders go down on me in combat, where it's not like there's someone readily available. Thank God the Fallout 1 drill works in our military. We got such a great officer in Incident Corps where someone can move up in those positions. But I lost some pretty solid people because they didn't want to go get that freaking surgery because they had to be out there for PT. They had to be out front. I love it. I mean, that's the attitude I've always had. But again, there was times where myself, as a CENTCOM sergeant major, I had a cancer issue. I go to Walter Reed and get a little chop, chop, chop. Back in theater in 3 months, and I thought I was nuts. But it's like I told my counselor, it's like, after going through this whole process of what type of surgeries or what the process are, you see a counselor, and it's this, middle-aged, wonderful young lady, probably had doctorates in whatever, and a master's in whatever, Cornell-ish. And I sit down in her office, and she goes, "Well, are you Frank?" It's like, "Ma'am, here's the deal. I know what I'm here for." I go, "There's a war on. I'm in a position where I'm a war fighter. And I already made a decision. I'm having surgery. I'm getting some chop done. I'm going to heal up and get right back in the fight. So whatever you want to talk about, thank you." I thought this site counselor was going to start crying. It's like, how do you military people do it? Well, how we do it is through resiliency. How we do it is through commitment to our unit, our service members, our families, and the cause. And it goes beyond that because, Chris, you know this, Ian, it's one thing to be that American service member, the American soldier, the Strat Ranger, but wherever we go, it's overseas, and we're making a better life, usually, as we discussed, Chris, for the people that we're going to help. You know what I mean? Let it be open combat and just surgically taking care of an issue, or if it'll be theater security cooperation and just advising. You know, the goodness is always there. But yeah, I love to take on, you know, another talk about resiliency and building grit and the psychological aspects of combat. And listen, I just want to take a moment. You know, there's a few shout outs I want to do for the Special Operations Warrior Foundation. You know, great organization, take care of, you know, those children of our KIA and so forth. And it's been expanded out to spouses and, you know, our Medal of Honoree awardees. You know, there's Mike Hall and the whole crew when it comes to the Three Rangers Foundation, the mentorship program. You know, they're doing great things, gaining interest in these organizations. The Special Operations Care Foundation, you know, fund, should I say, with Dave Kramer, little known organization that's helping our tier 1 forces out. You know, they sponsored me last summer to go get some MERT training, you know, some magnetic resonance therapy to make sure that the front of the brain, the back, of the brain, the middle of my brain, everything was resynced. So, you know, between
clearly it is. I mean, because you
additives, between way too many low level, you know, heavy parachute jumps where your cranium is always rocked. It works well. But I mean, God bless these people. I mean, out of the goodness of their heart, there's all these 501Cs out there. I can't even keep track of them all. I could only help so many. You know, presently, you know, I've talked about that regional leadership development program that the United States Army Pacific Command does for select officers, warrants, and senior NCOs, and to some of our foreign partners. Great classes given by William and Mary's College and General Ken and I, we're the senior mentors there. You know what I mean? And, you know, we take all this strategic level master's degree information and then we turn it into, you know, actionable activity out there with our service members. And 360, I just got called by General Steve Salazar, retired. And, you know, he's within an organization called 360. You guys could look it up. We're teaching resiliency classes, in other words, you know, across the spectrum with some of the larger military bases, the major Army units. So they want to bring me on board. In other words, as like a project manager to, you know, bring the teams together while we're doing these 2-week courses and so forth, give the proper overwatch. And, you know, once the academic portions are done, I could lend some of that world thought process from past experience. You know, I got my own LLC to help take care of those issues when I'm out, you know, getting hired on to do some talks. And finally, this little company called Nero 20, you know, we just got FDA approval for this electromagnetic suit that's used for both therapy, and you guys will love this, especially, you know, Chris, with some of your injuries, you know, it uses, you know, electricity at various, you know, synchronizations will stimulate your muscles for fitness and to stimulate your muscles and to help with neuroflossing, neuroplasticity, building up enzymes that help with brain healing. There's this whole spectrum. And we can talk about, if you want me back on and talk resiliency and all that, but I'm, you know,
that's cool. It sounds like the Iron Man suit or something.
Well, you know something, it's a wearable textile. There's a bunch out there on the market. There's no science behind them. You know, ours is FDA approved. I mean, we're bringing it on the market now. And I really want to get into the VA. I really want to get in the military side of the house, because a suit like this, you know, will help, you know, our young servicemen that want to join, or should I say our potentials out there, to help them get in shape so they can make it through our initial entry trainings and then go on. And this suit will follow you right through, you know, your entire military career and into the VA. And then finally, guys.
And is there a website people should go to for that, or?
Yeah. So if you want to copy this down, it's NEURO 20, Nero 20.
Just
Is it like
search it
Nero20.com
or
or
just search it. and it pops up.
Nero20.com. Exactly.
okay? I'm just looking because
60,
I think people.
I-
I mean, all the charities you're mentioning are great and people, but I think people really want to check this out. And I do see it. It's Nero20.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the suit now. It looks almost like a wetsuit. It's
Well,
pretty cool.
it is. It's like a tri wetsuit, but you know, and be honest with you, it's washable and it has the different frequency levels for both, you know, strength training, endurance training, XYZ. I don't want to get into a marketing here on your show, but
No, it's fine.
the type of
Plug
people
away, man.
that listen to this, you know, check out that website and it's coming at you now. We're waiting on the final letter to come from the FDA with the codes on it and so forth. So I could confidently go, you know, and say, hey, this is FDA approved.
No, this sounds cool. It's one of those things where honestly, if someone emailed us about this and I didn't know who they were, I'd be like, Chris, this sounds too good to be true. But you sound like a trustworthy guy and you have the experience that
what the
I
hell
trust
was
this is going to be like really revolutionary.
where the hell was this in the 90s? Damn it. Come on,
No,
man.
I'll tell you what, you know, and I've been using it for 2 years now. And
Oh,
you know, we've been advancing the technologies and the materials and the electrical pulses and all that. You know, we got some of the top Nero people in the world helping us develop this suit. And interesting background, you know, Chris, you know, the founder, you know, he's from your world in a matter of fact. And Dennis Schmidt.
okay.
You know, he's been injured numerous times,
Yeah.
former Marine recon, so forth, and great American, you know. And
Well, yeah.
another key in that is, you know, another former New York City policeman who's been wounded and injured numerous times, and he's an educator. He's a very intelligent guy. You know, his wife Yana, you know, she's from the high ground up there in Eastern Europe. Great woman, you know what I mean? She's worked within our bases and so forth in support of our forces over the years. And we got a host of just great individuals. How I fit with this is you know, beyond me.
Well, you got
Very,
some on,
very,
you got
very,
some on,
very well-defined individuals.
you got some on the ground experience and been through a
There you
few
go,
things
brother.
here or there. So yeah, it's good to have you on and part of it. And yeah, anything that you have like that, we'll put out, we'll get out on so people can see. But yeah, I think having you back on and trying to talk, you know, just about just leading troops under duress, which we didn't get
I'll
into
be
too
standing
much.
by.
And I'd like
Chris,
that.
the last message, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but listen, I gotta get this out. You know, our military, you know, within our society and the issues that we have, we all understand that it's really putting a stress on all our services.
Yeah.
But especially the Army. You know, that's the ground gating force. That's the boots on the ground. That's everything we've talked about today, the goodness. And, you know, we miss recruiting by like 20,000 people.
Yeah, we talk about
Yeah,
that
we
on the
speak
show.
about this a lot.
Plus. So the one thing we need to do across the spectrum, you agree with it or not, I really don't care. But, you know, there needs to be a community effort, you know, from your local church to your local school. You know, people need to get out there and tell the story of the military. You know, in the goodness of developing great leaders, developing great citizens. It's more than going out and putting a tomahawk in someone's forehead. I'm all about that, shooting people in the face, you know what I mean? Bringing peace and security with JDAMs and, you know, we've all done that, you know what I mean? But in a bigger sense, the nation strategically is going to have a major issue if we allow this disconnect between society and the military, you know, to keep festering. You know, we got to bring great people in. We got to bring great people in. And we can't have people scared that, you know, we're not going to support them, you know, with proper medical. We're not going to support them without the proper equipment, that we're going to continue this cut and run attitude.
Yeah.
For a while now. I mean, it's you know, we won't go into the politics of it. You know, we know there's societal issues out there with different thought process of how our society should be. But, you know, the bottom line is we got to be able to produce war fighters in this nation. Because if we got to go back to the draft, and we're just taking anyone and anyone. I mean, there's a lot of great Americans that I'd love to draft and bring in there. You know what I mean? They'd do great things.
Yeah. But if it's like all these kids on TikTok joining the military, and this is coming from someone who didn't serve, right? So I'm not one to speak, but yeah, I don't know if they're ready for it.
But for our listeners out there, we got to get after it. I mean, this is serious business.
It's tough. It's just the leadership that is in there isn't putting their best foot forward, to say the least, and they're seeing how it affects affects us as a whole, and affects recruitment. And I live in the Midwest, and there's this is still very heavy military supportive, living in the Midwest, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri. But when you see a commander on a dress going to a costume party, and it doesn't send the right, it doesn't send the right signals.
I got you, brother.
To say, let's sign up. So, the command structure has to, but I tell guys too, is that you're going, don't worry about that. You're not even probably going to even deal with that. You're going to be with that person, you're right and left. And if you're going to go in special ops, because those people want to be there. That's what I always say. If you're going to go. But even if you don't, and you just want to go in to maybe even the Guard Reserves, you're still with that person to your right or left. And that's who's going to have your back. And that's why you're going in to be there for them. And you won't get that feeling of brotherhood anywhere else. Brotherhood, sisterhood, however you want to say it nowadays, you're not going to get that feeling anywhere else. So, but I said the command structure, command sergeant major, you can't send the right signals of we're war fighters when when the male officer is wearing a skirt dressing up as a woman, whether it was a joke or not. It doesn't send the right signals and doesn't make people want to join the military.
I got you.
Yeah, and that's a good place
you guys
to end it.
Put me in tornado mode right now.
No, I said we're going to have you come. We're going to have you come on again, because you have lived a tremendous life, and your leadership, your experience and your knowledge of leadership under duress. We didn't get into any of that, and I think that's extremely important, because I need to learn more of that.
We'll definitely do a part 2, but yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate it. Our listeners appreciate it.
And you're awesome. You're awesome, Command Sergeant Major. You're a legend, brother. You are a fucking legend, and the Ranger community, of course, knows that, and you're honored with that, because
I do this. I'm still practicing with Casey to do this Hawaiian stuff right now.
You hit too many people, you hit too many cars, you've broken too many knuckles, so you can't do it. We'll let it slide, man. It's just, you've just lived a hard life.
There's some secrets we need to keep secret there.
Exactly. Shh. I won't say anything else. Ian, take over. I've said too much already.
All the best, guys.
That's all for this episode of the Battle Line Podcast, but we'll be back on Monday with more American Straight Talk. Until then, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Battle Line Podcast and on Twitter at Battle Line Pod. To sign up for future Battle Line tactical courses, go to www.christantoperanto.net. Believe in yourself, face all challenges head on, and as always, never quit.